Picture this. You're a sales director or maybe a hiring manager at a fast-growing company.
Right. You've got this big target on your back.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And you've just secured the budget to bring on a real heavy hitter. You need a top-tier sales professional.
Someone who can actually move the needle.
Yeah, someone to generate real pipeline. So you sit down with a specialist recruiter to kick off the search. And what is the very first question that inevitably comes out of your mouth?
Oh, I know this one.
I mean, I can almost guarantee it's this. You ask, what industries do you cover?
It is the absolute classic opening line. And let's be honest, from a risk management perspective, it feels entirely justified.
Totally.
When you're putting, a massive base salary on the line, you naturally want someone who speaks your language right out at the gate.
Yeah, someone who knows your competitors, the nuances of your specific market. It just feels like common sense. Right?
You want a plug-and-play solution.
Exactly. But according to our source material today from the sales experts, if your ultimate goal is to actually secure the top 1% of sales talent, asking about industry coverage is just the entirely wrong way to start.
It really is.
So the mission of this deep dive today is to shatter that myth, the myth of the industry silo. We're going to uncover the real secret to sustainable sales success, which is this concept called commercial fit.
It's a fascinating concept.
It is. Okay, let's unpack this because I know that as an executive, taking a chance on a candidate from outside your specific industry bubble feels incredibly risky.
How terrifying.
Right, feels like you're just paying for someone else's learning curve.
Well, it absolutely feels that way until you shift the lens on what you're actually hiring them to do. Because specialist sales recruitment doesn't fixate on rigid industry categories. It zeroes in on revenue generation. So the sources present this fundamental rule. If a role is commercially critical, meaning the person is directly responsible for driving revenue, the underlying mechanics of how they sell matter significantly more than the actual product they're selling.
Okay, so we're moving away from the illusion of the industry entirely.
Exactly.
And we're looking at the commercial reality of the day-to-day job.
Yeah.
You're saying that the environment a salesperson operates in is defined by structural mechanical factors, not just the logo on the widget they happen to be pushing.
That is the core argument right there. The source material identifies 5 unique characteristics that truly define any salesperson's commercial environment.
5 pillars.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you understand these 5 pillars, you completely change how you screen resumes.
Yeah.
So let's look at the first one. It's typical deal size.
Okay, let's pause on deal size. Because intuitively, bigger just sounds harder.
Sure.
But how does that actually change the day-to-day behavior of the candidate? What am I looking for in an interview?
Well, it changes their entire psychological approach. Think about it. A $5,000 transactional deal often relies on creating immediate momentum.
Like hype.
Yeah, you're leveraging emotional urgency or maybe a quick return on investment. The salesperson needs really high energy and, frankly, intense resilience to frequent rejection.
Because they're making a ton of calls.
Exactly. But a $5 million enterprise contract, you cannot use FOMO to push a corporate board into a $5 million capital expenditure.
Yeah, no, that's not going to work.
Not at all. That environment requires a candidate who knows how to mitigate institutional risk. They need to build a rigorous financial business case and patiently align multiple departments over time.
That makes the second characteristic from the sources, the complexity of the products or services, much easier to understand.
Right.
Because the complexity dictates the skill set. Looking exclusively for exact industry experience, it's like hiring a driver and demanding they've only ever driven a red Honda.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Right. Instead of asking if they actually know how to navigate heavy city traffic in a manual transmission,
Exactly.
you're focusing on the paint job, not the skill.
Yeah.
If you need someone to drive a stick shift through gridlock, you really don't care what color the car used to be.
No, you care about their mechanical ability to handle the clutch and read the traffic.
Yeah.
And in this analogy, the paint job is the industry label. Manufacturing, tech, finance.
Right.
But the manual transmission in heavy traffic is the commercial structure, which ties directly into the third characteristic, which is the length of the sales cycle.
Okay.
We're talking about the massive difference between a one-call close and an 18-month procurement process.
And mechanically, an 18-month cycle means you're basically hiring a project manager who also happens to sell.
Pretty much, yeah.
If a candidate's resume is just full of monthly quota crushing in a 30-day sales cycle, they might just mentally check out if you put them in an 18-month cycle.
Oh, they often do, because the gratification is delayed for a year and a half.
Yeah.
And during those 18 months, they have to navigate the fourth characteristic, which is the buyer decision-making process.
Okay, this is a big one.
It really is. Are you selling to a single end user who can just swipe a corporate credit card? Or are you selling to a committee of 12 different stakeholders who all have completely conflicting agendas?
Yeah, the sources mention that complex environments require a salesperson to identify the economic buyer versus the technical buyer and to multi-thread a deal.
Right.
Let's break those terms down because honestly, that sounds like heavy sales jargon.
Yeah.
What does that actually look like in practice for a hiring manager trying to assess someone?
Yeah, let's strip away the jargon. Let's start with the buyers. So the technical buyer is the person who evaluates if the product actually works.
Look at the end user.
Right. Maybe it's the head of IT or a lead engineer. They care about features.
Okay.
But the economic buyer is the person who controls the actual budget, the CFO or the VP of operations.
And they care about the money.
They care about return on investment, exactly. A top-tier salesperson knows that winning over the technical buyer doesn't mean you've won the deal.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, they have to simultaneously translate those technical features into actual financial value for the economic buyer.
Okay, so that's the buyers. And what about multi-threading?
So multi-threading is essentially building a safety net. An amateur salesperson will build a relationship with one single champion inside a company.
Like they put all their eggs in one basket.
Exactly. And if that champion quits or gets fired halfway through a year-long sales cycle, the deal dies instantly.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
But a multi-threaded seller systematically builds relationships across the entire organization. The finance team, the IT department, the end users, the executive board.
Like if one person leaves.
The web of relationships keeps the deal alive.
That makes total sense. Which brings us to the fifth and final characteristic, competitive dynamics.
Yes.
Is the candidate used to operating in a blue ocean market where they're like the only real player and just have to educate the market?
Right, evangelizing.
Exactly. Or are they coming from a highly commoditized bloodbath where they are fighting 5 identical competitors on price every single day?
Those require entirely different competitive instincts.
Completely.
When you combine those 5 factors, deal size, complexity, sales cycle, buyer process, and competitive dynamics, you actually get the true DNA of the job.
Which gives us a massive, actionable takeaway for you listening right now.
Yep.
Define your next role's success profile based on its commercial structure and market dynamics rather than just copying and pasting an industry label onto a job description.
Yes.
Stop asking, have they sold our product? And start asking, have they successfully navigated our type of sales environment?
And to really see the power of that approach, we should probably look at how this plays out in the real world.
Yeah, let's do it.
The sources compare 2 massive but structurally distinct commercial sectors, industrial and technical markets versus technology and software.
2 completely different beasts on the surface. I mean, when we look at industrial and technical, we're talking about manufacturing, maritime, commercial construction, heavy safety equipment.
Right. And what defines that commercial environment mechanically?
It's physical stuff.
Exactly. These are highly complex physical products. They usually involve incredibly long sales cycles and intricate global supply agreements. And crucially, the buyers are highly technical pragmatists.
You're selling to engineers, basically.
Engineers, naval architects, site managers.
So a salesperson in this space isn't just like pitching a vision. They have to navigate deeply technical specifications, compliance regulations, and complex commercial supply chain logistics.
It's very rigorous.
They have to prove that a massive piece of physical machinery will arrive on time and integrate perfectly into an existing physical infrastructure.
Now compare that to technology and software, SaaS, AI, cloud infrastructure.
The environment completely shifts. I mean,
Yeah.
in SaaS, the absolute lifeblood is predictable. Recurring revenue.
Yes.
You aren't selling a one-off piece of maritime equipment that sits in a dock for 10 years. You're selling an annual subscription.
And what's fascinating here is how that subscription model fundamentally changes the required sales behavior.
How so?
Well, because the revenue is recurring, a SaaS salesperson has to deeply understand customer lifetime value and churn rates.
Ah, right.
If they aggressively sell a software package to a customer who isn't a good fit, that customer will just cancel their subscription next year.
And the company loses the recurring revenue.
Exactly. And they likely lose money on the cost of acquiring that customer in the first place. Plus, the product is intangible. They're often educating business decision makers on emerging tech that the buyer might not even fully understand yet.
Okay, but wait. Let me play devil's advocate here because I know what our listeners are thinking right now.
Sure.
If I'm a hiring manager and I'm looking for an account executive for my cutting-edge AI software startup, I definitely do not want someone whose background is in selling, say, commercial concrete or construction materials.
I hear you.
There has to be some limit to this cross-industry idea, right?
Right.
Because AI software and concrete are universally different products.
That is a completely fair pushback, but it raises a really important question about how we assess complexity on a resume.
Okay.
You're absolutely right that you wouldn't take someone who does high-volume, low-value transactional sales of basic building supplies and put them in an enterprise AI role.
Right. They're just taking orders for 2x4s.
The commercial mechanics don't match at all. However, consider a construction salesperson who sells complex, multi-million-dollar architectural engineering systems.
Okay, that's different.
Think about their day-to-day reality. Their job involves aligning visionary architects, strict city planners, environmental regulators, and tight-fisted financial backers.
Wow.
They have to manage all those conflicting interests over an 18-month period just to get a single project approved.
So they are already master orchestrators of chaos.
Exactly.
They already know how to multi-thread.
They know exactly how to multi-thread a complex deal. They know how to identify the economic buyer versus the technical buyer. The underlying complexity and the buyer dynamics align perfectly with enterprise software sales.
That is wild.
From a hiring manager's perspective, it is actually much easier to teach a brilliant, strategically patient salesperson the technical details of an AI platform than it is to take a tech-savvy junior rep and try to teach them the emotional intelligence and strategic foresight required to close a multi-stakeholder million-dollar deal.
Right, because you're hiring for the proven capability to generate pipeline and manage complex buying behaviors.
Precisely.
The product knowledge, AI platform's features, can be trained in a few weeks of onboarding. But the commercial instinct to navigate a hostile procurement committee, that takes years to build.
Which is why specialist recruiters look at the underlying DNA. If a candidate can successfully navigate a labyrinthine procurement process for commercial engineering, they already possess the behavioral muscle to navigate the procurement process for a massive cloud migration.
The commercial fit is there, even if the product is entirely different.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've covered physical industrial products and we've covered intangible software. But the source material also dives into commercial environments, where the product isn't just intangible, it's entirely experiential.
Yes, that's a great point.
Let's look at business services, media, and FMCG, because the required behaviors shift gears dramatically again.
They really do. Let's start with business services. Management consulting, corporate training, outsourced HR, professional advisory.
You aren't selling a physical widget, and you aren't selling a software license with a neat list of features. You are literally selling expertise.
Which means you are essentially selling a promise.
Yeah.
The commercial environment here demands incredibly high credibility and the ability to build deep, enduring relationships. A salesperson in this space doesn't have a physical demo they can just plop on a conference table.
Right, there's nothing to touch.
They have to conceptually break down a complex business problem and convince the client that their firm's minds are the absolute best ones to solve it.
So a hiring manager looking at this space needs to screen for consultative language, active listening, and evidence of long-term client retention.
Absolutely.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Compare that slow burn, trust and promise environment to media, marketing, and events.
Oh, media and events are entirely different pressure cookers.
Yeah.
Imagine you're selling sponsorships or exhibitor space for a major global tech conference. You are dealing with an immovable fixed deadline. The event is happening on October 15th, no matter what.
Right. You can't delay the close until Q4 just because the client's legal team is dragging their feet.
Exactly. The commercial environment is defined by those extremely tight timeframes, intense competition for budget, and the necessity for relentless networking.
So the behavioral profile requires high energy, creativity in packaging advertising solutions, and just an aggressive drive to secure partnerships before the clock runs out.
Spot on. And then on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, the sources highlight consumer products and FMCG, fast-moving consumer goods.
We're talking about packaged food, household goods, consumer electronics.
Right. And in FMCG, the end consumer might only pay $3 for the product at the grocery store. But the salesperson isn't selling to the consumer.
You're dealing with massive retail channels, national distributors, and global e-commerce platforms.
The volume is staggering. The commercial environment is defined by brutal, daily competition for retail shelf space.
It's the battle of speed and margins.
It demands razor-sharp negotiation skills, a deep understanding of supply chain logistics, and high-level key account management just to maintain product placement against rival brands.
Man, it is the stark difference between selling trust in a boardroom over 12 months in consulting versus selling speed, volume, and shelf space in a highly transactional retail environment.
It's night and day.
So if I'm an executive listening to this right now, and I'm realizing just how vastly different these commercial mechanisms are, how do I use this framework to actually win the talent war? Because ultimately, everyone listening wants to hire the absolute best.
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture of talent acquisition, it explains exactly why relying on direct competitor poaching is a trap.
Oh, totally.
The talent pool within your specific industry silo is incredibly finite. Usually, companies are just trading the same 5 people back and forth, inflating their base salaries each time without getting any better results.
Yeah, that happens constantly.
But the core mechanics of selling, uncovering business pain points, building business cases, managing complex pipelines, and negotiating commercial agreements, those mechanics are universal across different industries with similar commercial structures.
So by defining the commercial fit instead of the industry label, you suddenly unlock access to a massive pool of top-tier talent in adjacent sectors.
Exactly.
You're looking at candidates your competitors aren't even considering.
But, and this is a big but, you have to respect those commercial boundaries we've been discussing.
Right.
A hiring manager must understand the consequences of a mismatch. Take a salesperson who thrives in a high-volume, highly transactional environment, like certain types of FMCG or short-cycle software sales.
Okay.
If you hire them into a complex 18-month enterprise consulting environment, they will likely drown.
Because you've fundamentally changed their reward system.
Yeah.
I mean, they're used to the dopamine hit of a quick close and high daily activity. Strip away that fast close, force them to sit in strategy meetings for 6 months, and they'll lose their minds. They'll start trying to force deals before the client is ready.
Exactly. And the reverse is equally disastrous. Take a highly strategic, consultative enterprise seller who is used to meticulously closing 3 massive deals a year.
Right.
Put them in an environment where the commercial structure demands closing 5 deals a week. They're going to overanalyze every single small transaction, fail to build sufficient pipeline volume, and struggle to keep up with the required pace.
It has absolutely nothing to do with their intelligence or even their industry background.
Nothing at all.
It has everything to do with their behavioral fit for the commercial structure. They're applying the wrong mechanics to the machine.
Which is why the top specialist recruiters evaluate candidates entirely on those sales behaviors, their commercial capability, and their proven ability to generate pipeline in a specific type of environment.
This gives us our second major actionable takeaway for our listeners. Expand your talent pool.
Yes.
Stop fighting over the same small handful of candidates your competitors are talking to. If you are hiring, look for candidates in adjacent sectors that share your specific commercial structure, your typical deal size, and your average sales cycle. Find the people who have the right commercial muscle, even if they've been exercising it in a completely different gym.
That is the defining strategy for securing the top 1%. You're looking for a track record of revenue generation in a comparable dynamic. Past performance in a structurally similar environment is the single truest indicator of future performance.
This completely upends the traditional hiring playbook. We've dismantled the idea that industry experience is the holy grail of sales recruitment. So for you, the sales leader, the hiring manager, or the executive listening to this deep dive right now, here is the ultimate summary. When you are evaluating your open roles or looking at a stack of resumes, the real question isn't, do they know our industry?
Right.
The real question is this role commercially critical, and do these candidates possess the underlying mechanics to match our commercial dynamics?
It's about shifting your entire perspective from the product being sold to the process of the sale. Because sustainable, repeatable sales success is driven by process, behavior, and pipeline generation capability.
Absolutely. If you're ready to stop recycling the same average talent and want to build a truly dominant revenue-generating team, you need to clearly define your success profile and your commercial hiring strategy before you ever commit to a search.
Don't just skip that step.
Do not just throw up a generic job description with an industry requirement and hope for the best. To help you structure that profile, we highly recommend heading over to thesalesexperts.com.
It's a great resource.
You can explore their extensive Q&A section, which breaks down exactly how top-tier sales candidates are assessed and discovered across different commercial environments. And while you're there, you can check out resources like the Rainmaker Sales Mastery Program. Just head straight to the website to dive deeper into achieving actual sales success.
As we wrap up today's analysis, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over. I want you to mentally picture the absolute top-performing salesperson on your team right now, your rock star, the person who carries the quota. Now, in your mind, completely strip away the name of your product. Erase the name of your industry from their resume. Look only at the mechanics of what they do every single day to win. How would you describe the commercial environment they actually thrive in?
What is their deal size? Who are the stakeholders they charm? How long do they sustain their strategy?
Define that exact environment. Because once you do, you might just realize that your next great hire is currently out there, absolutely crushing it in a market you've never even considered looking at.